Joining me now is Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia. Senator Warnock, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Great to be here with you. Good morning.
Well, good morning to you, Senator. Our thoughts are with you and everyone in the state of Georgia after that horrific school shooting this week. Of course, you have been in your position in the wake of other mass shootings as well. What makes this instance unique, though, Senator, is the fact that a father has now been charged after giving his son the weapon that authorities say was used in the mass shooting a year after the father was questioned by the FBI for online threats that his son was making. Do you think that there is any law that could have prevented this tragedy in your state, Senator?
Well, let me just say that I spent Friday night with the wonderful people of Winder, Georgia. And I thought about it as I was sitting there, thought about my own days as a high school student a long time ago. But it was Friday night. We should have been at a high school football game with high school students cheering on their classmates. Instead, they were mourning their classmates and two teachers. Look, we can do better than this. We have to begin with the fact that this is a tragic form of American exceptionalism. This doesn't happen all over the world. Nowhere else where you have a country that's not at war do you have this kind of routine, random violence as just a part of the tragic everyday lives of people. And so there are a whole range of things that need to be done. And I find it deeply frustrating that in the wake of this, we can't we can't find the will to do what we Americans agree on. And that's a whole range of things. But we have to start with the fact that this can't continue and that we can fix it.
Senator, I guess just going back to my original question, though, is there a specific law that you think could have prevented this tragedy when you have a case of a father gifting his son the weapon, according to authorities?
Listen, 14-year-olds don't need AR-15s. And we need to get these military-style weapons off the streets. 87% of Americans, Democrats and Republicans, according to a Fox News report last year, believe that we ought to have universal background checks, and still we can't even get that done in Congress. Listen, there is no one single law that will stop all of these tragedies. In a sense, I think we have to broaden the scope of the question because, after all, we have 2 mass shootings a day in our country based on the data just last year. And this does not happen everywhere in the world. The problem is that we have politicians in our country who are beholden to the gun lobby. And either based on ambition or fear, they go to work every day doing their bidding while the gun lobby lines its pockets with the blood of our children. I can tell you as a father that there's nothing more precious than that morning time when you walk your kid to school or drop them off. And you want to believe reasonably that a few hours later you're going to be able to pick them up. And the reality is that in America, it's not safe to be in our schools. It's not safe to be in our shopping malls. It's not safe to be in the spa. It's not safe to be in a medical clinic. We're all sitting ducks. And any country that allows this to continue without putting forward just common sense gun safety measures is a country that has, in a tragic way, lost its way. Politicians need to realign their values. Yeah. And this is what it means to have a democracy. If we can't protect our children, what are we doing?
Senator, let me ask you about some specific policies. In 2019, then Senator Harris said she would support a mandatory gun buyback program for assault weapons. Now her campaign says, and told me overnight again, she will not push for mandatory buybacks, but has expressed support for as assault weapons ban, expanded background checks, red flag laws. But do you think that's a mistake? Should she also be, in your opinion, supporting a mandatory gun buyback program?
Listen, we're not going to be able to get where we need to go without action in Congress. We've got to pass some laws to deal with this. Now, I was heartened by the fact that 2 years ago, we finally did a gun safety law, the Safer Communities Act. And it was the first gun safety law we passed in 30 years. 30 years. And it was modest, but it did save lives. But clearly, in the wake of what happened just the other day in Winder, Georgia, it's not enough. And the least we can do is move forward on the bipartisan spaces where ordinary people agree. Clearly, there's a disconnect between what the people, the American people, want and what they're able to get out of their government. Again, 87% of Americans believe in background checks. And yet I hear politicians say that it's not guns who kill people, it's people who kill people. And yet we don't even want to know who those people are. We won't even support.
Senator, just yes or no, though, should she support the mandatory buyback program? Just a yes or no.
Listen, look, as a pastor, I've done buyback programs. You can pick this issue or that issue. But I think that, again, there's not one single thing that will make all of this go away.
Senator, let me play you something that J.D. Vance had to say. He made headlines this week by saying the way to deal with this issue is to focus in part on school security. Take a look.
You've got some states that don't have strict gun laws at all. And the states with strict gun laws, they have a lot of school shootings. And the states without strict gun laws, some of them have school shootings too. So clearly strict gun laws is not the thing that is going to solve this problem. What is going to solve this problem, and I really do believe this, is, look, I don't like this. I don't like to admit this. I don't like that this is a fact of life. But if you are a psycho and you want to make headlines, you realize that our schools are soft targets. And we have got to bolster security at our schools.
Senator, as you know, he is expressing the opinion of a lot of folks across this country. What's your response to hearing that?
Listen, J.D. Vance claims that this kind of random, routine carnage is a fact of life. No, it's not. It's a fact of American life. This, again, is a tragic form of American exceptionalism. Nowhere else in the world do you have a country that's not at war. Do you see this kind of violence? And so we have to ask ourselves, we have to engage in serious soul searching as Americans. Why does this happen here? There are people who are given to violence in other countries. I hate it when people malign the mentally ill, because most of them are not a danger to us, but there are people who are mentally sick in other countries. There are children who are troubled in other countries. This only happens here.
Senator,
it's the guns.
Senator,
and those who want to make this, yes.
Let me ask you quickly.
This is not a debate between those who believe in the Second Amendment and those who don't. It is to the gun lobby's advantage that this has become a kind of culture war. It's like saying in another time that those who want seat belts are against the freedom of being on the road. In hindsight, we understand how ridiculous that argument would be. We need to put forward reasonable gun safety laws, and that's the least we can do for our children.
Senator, very quickly, let me ask you about the debate. Here's what Donald Trump has had to say about Vice President Harris just this week. Quote, she does nothing but talk, nothing but gripe, nothing but complain about the terrible border or the economy and inflation. But she's been there for 3.5 years, so why doesn't she fix it? Presumably he'll make that argument on the debate stage. How do you think she should respond to that?
Well, listen, I don't think she's going to underestimate Donald Trump. After all, he's been engaged in these debates at the presidential level since 2016. I think on the issue of the border, she ought to ask him, why is it that he killed the border deal that we got, that was ready to be passed in Congress, written by a conservative Republican. And yet he decided that he would rather have the issue for the election rather than solve the issue for the American people. This is consistent with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is for Donald Trump. And Kamala Harris has spent her life working for the people. Kamala Harris for the people. I think that's who will show up on Tuesday night.
All right. Senator Warnock, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.